Something I've always appreciated when it comes to talking about personal favorite games is that people can't argue with you. As most longtime viewers have probably noticed, I'm just not the arguing type of guy. I like to be agreeable. And sure, people can call you an idiot for having bad taste all they want, as they seem to like doing, but it's still your decision nevertheless, because that's just how personal favorites work. Funny enough, as quick as people are to jump down somebody's throat over which games they prefer, I've noticed people are just as eager to hear what someone's favorites are to begin with. So why is this? Well, I think when people ask, they're kind of hoping you'll just say the same thing that they would pick. When I ask somebody what their favorite fruit is, I just want them to say banana. But it's more than that. I think it's to help give a good indication of where your tastes lie. Oh, your favorite Super Nintendo game is Madden 94? We have nothing in common. This goes for favorite consoles as well, and can even apply to the preference of older consoles over newer consoles. For example, a lot of you may have had a moment when you first found my channel where you thought, oh, this guy seems to like older video games. This channel might actually be worth watching. Personally, when somebody mentions one of their favorite games and it's a game that I like, it makes me want to hear what other games they like, because it's essentially just like getting game recommendations at that point. Somebody says they're into Rocket Knight Adventures and I instantly want to hear what else they're into and be their best friend for life. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to list my favorite game for each console from the NES up to about the Gamecube. This will include most of the popular consoles that people talk about, and yeah, this does mean I won't be talking about everything, so if you were looking forward to me talking about my favorite game for the Acorn Archimedes, don't hold your breath. First up, we've got the NES. A lot to pick from here with such a deep library, and yet my favorite game is one of the most well-known games for it, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Or heck, I'd even take the lesser version, Mr. Dream's Punch-Out! On the surface, this may appear like a basic boxing game, but this game is made by Nintendo, and they're not going to settle for any generic nonsense. Figuring out how to beat each boxer is what makes it so fun. Instead of each opponent just hitting harder or faster as you move along, they each have specific strategies you'll need to utilize to take them down, or in some cases take them down even faster. Some of the boxers are more straightforward than others, but pretty much all of them will have you saying, I figured out the thing, and I did the thing, by the time you beat each one. In fact, those were my exact words. It's a combination of strategy with execution. Timing is key and often requires precision, making this a game that just feels so dang good when you get into the rhythm of a fight and what you need to be doing. Next up, Sega Genesis, and of course, Rocket Knight Adventures. A lot of gamers are probably initially scared away by this game because it looks like it's just some Sonic ripoff, and to be fair, it kind of is. I mean, he's even blue. Plus, a lot of mascot platformers started popping up after Sonic's success to try to ride the bandwagon. However, the key thing that Rocket Knight Adventures did right that most of the other games forgot about was making a good game. A really good game. The main thing that always sticks out with this game is how varied the levels are. What you're doing is constantly changing, and there's just so much inspiration poured into the design. Tying it all together perfectly is how much fun it is to play as Sparkster. He's got a rocket pack and a sword. There's all sorts of satisfying maneuvers you can pull off, and the control is oh so buttery smooth. When I think of games that embody what I love about the 16-bit generation so much, it's just impossible for me to not think of this game. Next up, we've got Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo, and in a bit of a surprise, it's the first Donkey Kong Country. You might be wondering why I wouldn't have chosen the second Donkey Kong Country, and that's a smart thought to have because objectively speaking, that's probably a better game. So why did I choose the first one? Well, I just have more fun when I play it. That's the thing about favorites. They give you a certain special feeling, and you can't always explain it entirely. I mean, how many games make your face do this when you play them? One thing I can say is that I always felt the first game nailed the whole out in the country vibe well, which seemed fitting to me given the game is called Donkey Kong Country. There's something about this game setting that just makes me feel really good. It's a fun place to be. The platforming is always satisfying. I like the barrel shooting, mine carting, the animal buddies. It's just a great time and never loses its magic for me. Though really all three Donkey Kong Countries give me that feeling. Next up, we've got Castlevania Castlevania, Rondo of Blood for the Turbografx 16, PC Engine, or any of the other 73 names associated with that console. So why the heck am I playing it on the PSP? Well, this version is translated to English and it's just always how I played it. And the cost of the game and a PSP to play it on is still cheaper than a copy of the original release by itself. But let there be no mistake, this is a PC Engine CD game. There we go with those console names again. Through and through, and it's built so specifically around that hardware. CD music and Castlevania teaming up is always a good thing. And what I like about this game is that it almost feels like a perfect mix between the more linear Castlevania games and the more open-ended ones, a la Symphony of the Night. When you play this game, it feels like a classic-vania game that has secrets which are always fun to discover so that you can find all the different hidden levels. I've gone through this game 100% a few times at this point. So dang good. Jumping up a generation, my favorite PS1 game is Resident Evil 2, no 3. In all honesty, I'd take either one, but I put 3 simply because I have a better memory of playing it. The popular opinion that I had always seen from people is that 2 is better than 3, so I always just sort of put 3 aside. When I finally played it, it felt like I was playing something I possibly would have never played, and thank goodness that's not the case because I loved it. It does what all Resident Evil games do well, but on top of that, the big feature of this particular Resident Evil is the character Nemesis. The big scary looking creature that's on the cover of the game, Nemesis can pop up at various points in the game and chase you and of course kill you, making you always on edge about when another encounter is coming and whether or not you have enough ammunition to down him or just run for it if you don't. Next up, my favorite game for the Sega Saturn is I cannot decide. Seriously, I love the Saturn and the games for it are so unique, but I just feel like I'm not ready to pick a favorite yet. That'll have to wait for a future video, I suppose. Nintendo 64, Ocarina of Time. Now, Ocarina of Time is one of those games that some people like to say is the greatest game ever made, and naturally this rubs some people the wrong way. Well, personally, I played this game both back when it was released, as well as recently, and thought it was great both times, and I'm not apologizing for it. Yeah, I'm playing it on the 3DS here, which helps out the visuals a bit, and makes it simpler to manage your items, so I'd recommend playing it here. The Neo Geo, tons of fighters and other great games, but I've got to go with Metal Slug and specifically the first one. Sure, the later games added a lot of cool stuff, including unique guns and vehicles, which I do love, but I've always liked the more straightforward approach of the original, making it a sentimental favorite. Next up, we've got the Sega Dreamcast, and this is kind of a strange one for me to choose because there's a lot of games for this console that I enjoy about all the same. However, I feel comfortable choosing Power Stone as my favorite because I feel it represents what the Dreamcast did well. Colorful, fun, arcade-style gameplay, and it's no coincidence that it's made by Capcom with how much support they gave the console. Again, a lot of you are probably wondering why I didn't choose the second game, which I do like, and once again, it's because I appreciate the more straightforward approach. One way I saw somebody describe it is that the first Power Stone feels more like a fighting game, and the second Power Stone feels more like a party game. Both extremely fun in their own way, but my heart belongs to the first one. A unique take on the fighting genre that only Capcom could have pulled off. After that, we've got the Gamecube, and my choice for this console would be Pikmin, a new IP from Shigeru Miyamoto made specifically for the Gamecube. It capitalizes on the fantasy of having your home garden come to life. It's a unique idea that not everybody will immediately get behind, but still great nonetheless. Kind of like the Gamecube itself. A lot of people complain about the time limit in the first game, but without it there wouldn't be much at stake, and it's what makes the strategy meaningful if you ask me. What makes this game so much fun to play is figuring out a plan for what you want to accomplish each day and then trying to execute it. Plus, you can always just restart a day if you want to, and the game even encourages it. So I've never never been on board with the complaints about time. I even finished the game with 8 entire days to spare. That's how much I enjoyed it. Alright, and if you thought I forgot about the Game Boy, you are mistaken. It's gotta be Donkey Kong, or Donkey Kong 94 as some people like to call it. 1994, what a great year that was. This game takes what made the original Donkey Kong arcade game, which I am also a big fan of, and turns it into what would make for a good home console game with added depth, all with the benefit of being a handheld game. This game is really long too, it's kind of crazy. This is a game that gets a lot of praise and I'm right there with everybody else. Okay, and one more I'll throw in for Game Boy Advance has to be Advance Wars 2. That's right, I don't always go with the first game for all these series. Having a strategy game like this to play on the go was such a blast back in the day, and I've always loved the theme of this one. It's kind of like Battleship, but actually good. Sorry, yeah, I'm not a fan of the board game. Easy to play and the perfect amount of challenge. Yes, please. Alright, and so that does it for my list of games, but I would imagine by this point a lot of you have had time to think of some of the games that you would list. Of course, you can always just say certain consoles are too difficult to try to make a decision for, like I did with the Sega Saturn, and I should note that just because I listed a game in this video doesn't mean I won't change my mind in the future. After all, there are a lot of games that I'm a fan of, and sometimes all it takes is a little bit of recency bias. So with that, be sure to leave your comments down below, and I will see ya in the next video.
He's the retro bird, yeah, and he's talking about video games. He's the